Coming up, a Joplin woman pleads guilty to killing 2 people while intoxicated.
Another warm start. We'll see if the cloud cover helps us out once again. We'll break down the end of the week rain as well from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And Missouri senators pass a bill requiring voters to show their IDs at the polls.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 5 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment, but first let's go to Michael Hayslip.
Another warm one, Tanya, with high humidity as well. Doesn't have that muggy feel to it. Not too bad at all. 73 degrees right now at Joplin Regional Airport as we take a live look over 7th and Rangeline. There's that humidity clocking in at 87%. How nice is that? Wind dying down to 11 miles per hour. Let's roll 70 in Miami, 75 in both Nevada and Fort Scott. And once again, where we sit in the high 60s in Monette and Cassville, we've already got some high 70s checking in Independence. Here is the wind tracker. Certainly calming down as we go through. Yesterday really wasn't too bad, all things considered, especially when you harken back to Monday when we had those 40-mile-an-hour gusts. We do have some more cloud cover than what we've had past couple of days, that is for sure. But all this rain that we see out to the west of us, that'll break before it gets to I-35. Really won't pose us any problems. And if you got to be on the road, seeing as how it really isn't even going to get to Wichita, shouldn't pose any travel concerns either. Weather trend for today, back up into the high 80s. Probably scrape out a little more 90s than what we did yesterday. Topped out at 84 degrees at Joplin Regional Airport. Far cry from the 91 that we needed to tie the record from 1963. So as that rain sits out to our west right there and we creep up into the 90s, as far as what Future Track has, Thursday is going to be a warm one as well. Then we've got a front that finally begins to develop for Thursday into Friday. That's going to work in from the west right there as we start to see the rain emerge for early Friday morning for our western counties. Not going to be widespread. And that actually brings in a little bit cooler temperatures there for Friday, Saturday, and we'll throw Sunday in as well. A little bit warm there, but you'll notice our overnight lows actually sinking to about what we consider normal this time of year. Tanya?
All right, thanks, Michael. A Joplin woman pleads guilty to driving while intoxicated in a crash that killed 2 people in 2021. Authorities say Rita Glasgow stole and drove a car while intoxicated. She crashed into another vehicle at the intersection of 28th and Connecticut, killing Terry and Rhonda Koppel of Joplin. Glasgow pleaded guilty to DWI death of 2 or more, possession of a controlled substance, and possession of drug paraphernalia. She will be sentenced in July. Joplin police arrest a suspect in Monday's robbery at Great Southern Bank. Authorities arrested Vincent Gepson from Anderson, Missouri. He is charged with robbery by force or violence. Missouri House passes a new congressional redistricting plan that could be put in place for this year's elections. State Senate still needs to approve the plan before Friday's deadline to pass legislation. The proposed voting districts are expected to continue Republicans' current 6-2 advantage over Democrats in the state's U.S. House delegation. Missouri is one of the last states still struggling to enact a congressional redistricting plan based on the 2020 census. Missouri senators pass a bill requiring voters to show photo identification at the polls. Primary bill would require voters to show government-issued photo IDs to cast ballots, and voters who do not bring valid IDs could cast provisional ballots. The bill would also allow voters to cast ballots up to 2 weeks prior to an election for any reason. Currently, voters need to cite an excuse for why they will not be able to vote in person on Election Day. Missouri House lawmakers reject a proposed constitutional amendment guaranteeing parents control of their children's public education. If enacted by voters, the proposal also would have put constitutional restrictions on how teachers discuss race and racism. Some Republicans argued the legislation should be enacted through state law, not the Constitution. One Democrat said parents already have the right to control their children's education by homeschooling. Now, as the school year comes to an end, summer school comes right around the corner. McDonald County School District is using a summer school program titled Summer Journey. The goal is to prepare students for the upcoming school year, and that includes giving supplies. Supplies will be delivered to schools in the district on Thursday.
for many of the classes that they're allowed to take for credit during the school year too. So you can take your art credit, your foreign language, music, drama, PE. We also have core credit classes that you might want to take if you're really into science. For example, you might want to take the forensic science or the microbiology class.
Summer school in McDonald County begins June 1st and runs through June 29th. You can see a full list of what's included in the new program on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. After a weekend hiking accident, people may have concerns about hiking safety and how to avoid something similar happening to them. Tim Smith, an administrative specialist with the Missouri Department of Conservation, says it's best to make sure that whoever is guiding your tour is certified to do so. He suggests going with someone registered with the National Park Service.
There are some people who are probably running guide services that are not registered or not legal, so to speak. I know National Park Services, they have some credentials you have to meet to be a guide service on their property.
Smith says it's important to always have an emergency plan in place when going on a hike or any outdoor activity. On Tuesday, Pittsburgh City Commissioners met to discuss a few things, including the fair market rent rate. The rate is set by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development based on the cost to rent a moderately priced dwelling in a housing market. As rent has risen in the area, so has the FMR rate. That impacts how much people could have to pay while using low-income housing vouchers. Commissioners yesterday approved a plan to increase the payment standard, which allows for higher rents under the voucher program.
It'll really open up opportunities for those that need the program, and the landlords in town who have had to increase their rent due to various price increases, materials, and different things like that.
Commission also approved a recommendation to allocate $30,000 to Blue Spoon Properties to renovate a North Broadway property and open a restaurant there.
We are actually quite excited about it. So downstairs we'll have a 900 square foot catering kitchen. I also have a 900 square foot storefront, and it will also house 3 Airbnb apartments that we plan to rent out as soon as they are finished.
We're going to have temperatures already in the mid-70s. My bad, I thought we were going to tag it. Temperatures in the mid-70s. It's got another warm start. Sunrise officially at 6:13, sunny and warm. Just a nice little 5 to 10 mile per hour south breeze. Going to stay dry for Wednesday, Thursday, and then some thunderstorms coming on Friday. Going to drop some thunder like Tanya be dropping Legos.
Sounds like Legos, but these are dominoes, Michael.
Dominoes, Legos,
Yes.
Something's a master, and it's on Fox 14.
Yes, we've got the just a little deep tease for you tonight on Fox 14, our sister station. We've got the season finale of the Master Builders show, and if you tuned in last week, you'll notice that I may have built something and then tore it down at the end of the show.
Are you going to try to tempt fate again?
Yeah, we are. But this one's going to be bigger and better. But you're going to have to watch for the next 2.5 hours to find out.
Your timing was so good on the last one. I almost would have just...
We gave ourselves 20 seconds to knock it down.
Yeah, I'm saying I would
13.
have rode off into the sunset and called it good.
Yeah, you don't think I should try again? Maybe a little more technical things? I'm going to warn you, though, I've done no planning in the last week on this. I may have forgotten about it. But it's going to be impressive, and you will like it. I just discovered and was told that there's a tool that comes with the kit that you can use, and I'm going to employ that. Plus, you can log on to our website, KOAMnewsnow.com, and sign up to win this 1,200-piece set, I think is what it is, for the, yes, partially used by Tanya, but still very cool.
This is the ultimate peel back the curtain. Now we get to see people while you were doing that, and I guess we're going to say on this shot, but I'm doing.
30. I was right. 1,200 pieces. There you go.
I'm doing thunderstorm stuff.
Your chance to register and win. Michael's going to be working on the weather and important things like that. Well, I'm playing with dominoes. That's going to be our morning, and giving you the news, of course. All right, that's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, the Gorillas are in the Final Four of the MIAA Conference Tournament. We'll have what they have in store for them. Next. Plus, the CDC blames the rise in gun violence on the pandemic. We'll meet one mother who lost her son to it. Just like humans, pets can get anxiety too. We'll have that story. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
Pittsburgh State Gorillas in the Final Four of the MIAA Conference Baseball Tournament hit the road to go to Edmond, Oklahoma. That's where they're going to face Northeastern State in the semifinals. Pitt State coming off a first-round series win over Missouri Southern, and it was a bit of an up and down, albeit exciting weekend. Gorillas lost game 1, then overcame a 4-run deficit in game 2, and then on Sunday, overcame an 8-run deficit to win game 3. That's one they're going to remember for a long time, but now they got to put it behind them, turn their attention to Northeastern State.
That's the best games that I've probably been a part of my whole life, and you know, it was a time that you got to understand that we got to move on and just learn from what we did this weekend and get better. But it was an exciting moment, and now we just kind of got to take a step back and go, okay, reevaluate everything that we've done this last weekend and get better for this next weekend.
Last night was semifinal night at the Class 1 District 6 softball tournament taking place in Liberal, Missouri. After a first-round bye, top-seeded Jasper Eagles up first, facing Northeast Vernon County. Winner of this one plays for a district title tonight. In the bottom of the first, Taylor Hines. Oh, my goodness, she got me choked up. Taylor with a 2-run shot puts Jasper on top early. Next, Livia Dunn shoots one past the shortstop. That's going to bring in 2 runs. Eagles extending that lead. And it was mostly Jasper County in this one. Courtney Spear hustling all the way down to first base as Emmy Bass comes home to score. Jasper rolls by Northeast Vernon County 12-2. Now on the other side of the bracket, hometown Liberal Bulldogs and the Osceola Indians starting in the bottom of the 6th. Elena Lanier yanks one into the left field corner. That's going to bring home 2 for Liberal. Bulldogs are out in front. Up next, Kyla Porter. That was laser beam. My goodness. Right off the fence in left field. 8-1 Bulldogs. But here comes Osceola, top of the 7th. They rally all the way back. And Natalie Roth is going to score on this play, and we are tied up. Bottom of the 7th, Liberal. Chance to win it. Kate Hatfield at the dish. Walk us off, Kate Hatfield. Walk us off. Taylor Sworn scores. Hatfield with the game winner. Puts Liberal in the district championship tonight. Final score in this thriller, 10-9. In Mount Vernon, championship night in the Class 2 District 6 bracket. Top-seeded Diamond Wildcats facing Pierce City for the district title. And Diamond rolls this thing 15-5. Only needed 5 innings to do it. That is back-to-back district titles for Diamond. Wildcats move on to the state quarterfinals next week. Southeast Kansas regular season finale for the Girard Trojans on the road to face Colgan. Both pitchers rolling early. Ava Wilson strike out to end the top of the 2nd. Bottom of the inning, Lexi Robinson doing her work for Girard. Game scoreless after 3. More from Robinson. 7 strikeouts last night. This one was scoreless until the 4th. Then in the 4th, bases loaded for one Emmeline Senecott. Unload them. Emmeline Senecott with a grand slam. Girard gets by Colgan. Final score 7-0. Pitt State's Tracy Mosby won the MIAA heptathlon title over the weekend in Emporia State. For Mosby, her first outdoor heptathlon title in her decorated PSU career. Most impressive part is how she did it. Mosby had not competed or even practiced this outdoor season leading up to the conference championships. This is because she had a stress fracture in her foot, and that put her in a walking boot for 6 weeks.
In the boot, obviously your hips are a little lopsided, so I get out of it and I'm like, my foot feels great, but now my back and my hip are hurting, so what do we do about that? So that kind of threw a wrench in it as well. We had to push back training even more. I was supposed to be running a couple weeks before conference, and then it was down to a couple days before, trying to loosen up that back.
There was a lot of unknowns that we had no idea how the foot was going to feel, how the body's going to feel. I mean, she hadn't done anything physically. And so we really had to manage, one, physically, to make sure she could get through it and be smart about it, and she was all for it. and then had to manage her emotions up and down because there's some events that were a struggle. We had to figure out how to do it again.
Now, when I say this, this is not an indicator. Tracy obviously works extremely hard at her craft, but being in a walking boot for 6 months, not being able to practice nor compete, essentially she just rolled out of bed and was like, I'm just going to go win a heptathlon. No bigs. That is absolutely amazing, and congratulations to Tracy Mosby on that. You can check out our full story with her on our sports page, KOAMnewsnow.com. Still to come on the KOAM Morning News, the Queen not attending the opening of Parliament for the first time in more than 60 years. And a check on our 7-day forecast when the KOAM Morning News returns. Average high for the month of May going to continue to grow on us here next couple of days. Got up to 84 degrees at Joplin Regional Airport on Tuesday. Bumped that average high for the month so far up to 72 degrees. Record high for today would be 90, set 3 times, 1963, 1980, and 2005. So once again, chance to challenge a record high. We've yet to break one this week. We've come close a couple of times. Stopped pretty far short yesterday at Joplin Regional Airport, thanks in part to all the clouds that we had. 73 right now in Joplin. Still have the flood warning for the Osage River. As far as nationally speaking goes, that is the one flood warning. Still hanging on to that one down by Tahlequah for the Illinois River. But that's the one flood warning we have left associated with last week's rain. Out to the west, high wind advisories, red flag warnings, the whole nine. Our wind getting better and better as the days go by. And we'll just roll about 5 to 10 miles per hour today. A whole bunch of calm readings. We'll take that for early morning hours. 72 in Carthage, 76 in Chanute, and 70 in Miami. So pleasant start. Now, despite the fact that we see the heavier cloud cover, especially as you work out to the west right there, shouldn't really impose sunrise at 6:13. Should still be beautiful. Clearer out to the east. This rain really isn't even going to make it to I-35, so it won't pose any problems for us. And slowly but surely, that rain begins to break, or the cloud cover begins to break throughout the morning, and we'll get a good dose of sunshine. Not a whole lot of movement in that jet stream, very consistent to where it was yesterday. And so right along that dividing line, you get on the north side of that. That's where we'll see the most activity for today. As far as what we're looking at for our afternoon planner, up in the high 80s, if not a 90 every now and then. Let's get into Friday. Here we go. Well, Thursday, another warm one. Thursday, we'll throw up some 90s. Then Friday, we begin a little bit of rain that starts out to our western edge. Really, though, it's going to be Friday afternoon into the evening hours where you get a little bit more widespread right here. This is one of those models, too, where you want to find the darker green of it. A lot of that lighter green really not going to have much of a bearing. The front moves in. I don't want to call it a massive cold front, anything like that. But take us down a couple degrees to get down to about the mid-80s there for Friday and Saturday. Time now to turn our attention to the KOAM News Now Insta Poll and our morning something to talk about on our Facebook page. There's been a sharp spike in the number of gun deaths in the United States. New CDC study finds the increases coincide with the pandemic. Michael George has one mother's plea.
Not a day goes by that Susan Williams doesn't mourn for her son Ethan, lost to gun violence.
I got a front row seat to an amazing kid for 20 years. But the sorrow and the grief is so big because he's left such a void.
The 20-year-old film student from Indiana flew to Brooklyn with friends in 2020, where he was shot and killed. Police believe he was the mistaken target in a gang shooting. The killer was never caught.
Just too many guns, and they're too easy to access.
A new CDC report shows gun violence is skyrocketing in America. Homicides from guns rose 35% from 2019 to 2020. The largest increase in gun violence victims, young black men. Low-income communities are impacted the most.
The stressors of COVID, both the economic stressors and the emotional stressors, certainly put a lot of additional stress on people's lives and have manifested in increases, in particular on gun homicides.
The new CDC study also looked at firearm suicide rates and found they remained historically high in 2020, with increases in low-income and rural areas. The CDC is prescribing the use of outreach workers who can identify and mediate community conflicts and who offer education about firearm storage. The agency also highlighted the need for housing assistance, child care subsidies, tax credits, livable wages, and more green spaces. Gun control advocates want to see stronger laws.
A lot of the studies that we have done and that others have done have shown that gun safety laws work and they reduce gun deaths.
The CDC says it will continue to deliver data on what many see as a growing public health crisis. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Our question for you this morning, is the pandemic to blame for an uptick in gun deaths? You can let us know by going to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote or connecting to us via our Facebook page. We'll be back with Health Watch next.
Topping Health Watch this morning, a recent study shows stores with fresh produce in poor neighborhoods may cut obesity rates among children. Researchers found that having fresh vegetables and fruits in supermarkets lowered children's obesity rate. The team targeted supermarkets with a great number of low-income customers throughout New York City's 5 boroughs, and then chose some of the stores to take part in a city-run food retail expansion program where markets were renovated or rebuilt. Analysts said a year after starting the program, obesity rates among kids lessened from 24% to 23%. Whether at home, school, or in the workplace, research shows having a dog around can improve people's well-being. But a new British study shows most pet owners don't spot the signs of depression and anxiety in their four-legged friends. Tina Kraus has the story from London.
Sit, Mosey. Good girl.
Pets are trained to tune in to their owners, but listening doesn't always work both ways.
Well, I'm sure everybody can tell you about how your dog knows when you're in a bad mood and knows how to come and cheer you up. But unfortunately, we're not as good at reading them.
New research from Guide Dogs UK reveals nearly 75% of Britain's dogs show signs of depression or anxiety, with 18% showing symptoms every week, and only about a third of owners recognize those signals.
How do I know if he's feeling anxious or sad?
The main things to look out for are disinterest in things that they used to be interested in, going off their food. So you can look at their little faces. If they're kind of lip licking a lot, if they're yawning a lot, that's kind of a sign of immediate stress.
Experts predicted a surge in poor pet mental health after the pandemic.
Suddenly we're all kind of going out again, and they've got used to us being at home. They're used to us being there and playing with them.
Dr. Helen Whiteside says just like people, dogs get bored too, so creative play is crucial to good health.
While you're out for your walk, why don't you make it not just a physical walk for them, but like a mentally stimulating walk when they kind of are sniffing the lampposts and things like that to find out what's going on around them.
Researchers say that extra mental boost for your fur baby could improve your health too. Tina Kraus, CBS News, London.
Research shows depression in dogs can be triggered by life changes such as divorce, house moves, or children growing up and moving away from home. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching KOAM Morning News. Coming up, a Joplin woman pleads guilty to killing 2 people while intoxicated.
We've got another warm one on our hands. Quiet start over 7th and Rangeline, but everybody anticipating more heat. We'll have the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And Missouri senators pass a bill requiring voters to show their IDs at the polls.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 5:32. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment, but first, let's go to Michael Hayslip.
32, 42, 43 minutes. 43 minutes away.
Sunrise?
I was told there would not be math.
Ooh.
Till sunrise. And the reason I say that is to the naked eye outside, you see the sky beginning to lighten up. But then as I was like, hey, let's show that really cool shot outside of the mothership. To the naked eye, it looks so, you can see just a little bit there. You let the camera just let your eyes adjust. But once again, the wind coming in from the south. That's just 5 to 10 miles per hour later on today. It's blowing still pretty good. We actually saw it standing straight sideways, not even waving here a couple days ago. Nice warm start, 73 right now in Joplin and Iola. Let's go 68 in Monette and Cassville. Miami sits at 70. Look at these warmer temperatures out to the west right here. 75 in the Neodesha and 76 in Independence. Here's the cloud cover that we were talking about, going to provide for a marvelous sunrise at 6:13. Always is nice to have just a little bit of cloud cover there to wrap in those colors. All this rain that we see sitting out to the west really isn't going to make it past I-35 right there. So if you have to be out and about today, you're going to be perfectly fine. Kind of reset our temps. We'll keep an eye on how quickly we warm up today because we're going to be pushing up around 90 degrees right here, sunny and warm. Those clouds are going to disperse. We'll get a whole lot of sunshine here later on today. Thursday, more of the same, up around 90 degrees, rain out to the east. Now for Friday, here's where things begin to change. System begins to move in from the west right there. Our heaviest rain is really going to be later on in the afternoon and evening hours. Even though we get started out here, in this model wants you to look for the darker spots. A whole lot of that light green on this when we're going that far out all the way into Friday evening. Probably not going to hit the ground, but as you can tell, it gets a little bit more widespread by the time we get to Friday evening. 7-day forecast. Got to taper that off for Saturday, and then Saturday evening into Sunday morning, some additional rainfall. Certainly nothing like what we had on Monday. Hey, Ron, what's up, man? Nothing. Cool. You just wanted to check out the 7-day?
We're planning something.
You didn't even know, did you?
I love the weather.
That was classic. Folks, that was one of our incomparable producers, Ron, who he wanted to make sure that my 7-day was in working order, and yeah, he's just cruising by.
Don't mind me. I'm just setting up dominoes.
I don't know why you're tempting fate again. I really don't. So if last week, folks, for a similar segment, Tanya quickly put together this very, very intricate and elaborate design, and she knocked it down at the end of our Fox show as part of our Domino's Masters show and our giveaway. But the timing was perfect, and that's how you can register to win your own Domino set. Warning, they do not have numbers on them, so Hayslip will not be showing up at your kitchen table to beat you.
But Tanya might, because it's 1,200 pieces, and they're different colors, and they come with some fun toys, too.
Long story short, Tanya pulled it off to a T. The last domino fell right as we went at the end of the show, right as we went to break. And I told her, I'm like, right off into the sunset. Why are you trying to do this again?
Because we only did it during the Fox show, and I only had a few commercial breaks to set it up, and it was a 13-second fall. So
once again,
why not go bigger and better?
Sunset, right off, roll end credits, take music, take musical score, Danny Elfman, and then we call it good.
This one's going to have a lot more challenges involved.
I didn't know the first one had challenges.
Well, the whole thing was a challenge because I haven't built dominoes to build and tear down since I was like 8. So it'd been a few years, just a few. And we also had time restraints and the aspect of live.
Anyway, when I find the double 5, folks, I will be using it as the spinner, and we will be able to play off that. So for those of you holding on to the 5-2, Tanya is holding on to the 5-1, just so you know.
All right. Well, be sure to keep an eye out for it. All right, let's move along. Joplin police arrest a suspect in Monday's robbery at the Great Southern Bank. Authorities arrested Vincent Gepson from Anderson, Missouri. He's charged with robbery by force or violence. And a Joplin woman pleads guilty to driving while intoxicated in a crash that killed 2 people in 2021. Authorities say Rita Glasgow stole and drove a car while intoxicated. She crashed into another vehicle at the intersection of 28th and Connecticut, killing Terry and Rhonda Koppel of Joplin. Glasgow pleaded guilty to DWI, death of 2 or more, possession of a controlled substance, and possession of drug paraphernalia. She will be sentenced in July. Missouri House passes a new congressional redistricting plan that could be in place for this year's elections. State Senate still needs to approve the plan before Friday's deadline to pass legislation. The proposed voting districts are expected to continue Republicans' current 6-2 advantage over Democrats in the state's U.S. House delegation. Missouri is one of the last states still struggling to enact a congressional redistricting plan based on the 2020 census. Missouri senators pass a bill requiring voters to show photo identification at the polls. Primary bill would require voters to show government-issued photo IDs to cast ballots, and voters who do not bring valid IDs could cast provisional ballots. The bill would also allow voters to cast ballots up to 2 weeks prior to an election for any reason. Currently, voters need to cite an excuse for why they will not be able to vote in person on Election Day. On Tuesday, Pittsburgh City Commissioners met to discuss a few things, including the fair market rent rate. The rate is set by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development based on the cost to rent a moderately priced dwelling in a housing market. Rent has risen in the area, so has the FMR rate, and that impacts how much people could have to pay while using low-income housing vouchers. Commissioners yesterday approved a plan to increase the payment standard, which allows for higher rents under the voucher program.
It'll really open up opportunities for those that need the program, and the landlords in town who have had to increase their rent due to various price increases, materials, different things like that.
Commission also approved a recommendation to allocate $30,000 to Blue Spoon Properties to renovate a North Broadway property and open a restaurant there.
We are actually quite excited about it. So downstairs we'll have a 900 square foot catering kitchen. I also have a 900 square foot storefront, and it will also house 3 Airbnb apartments that we plan to rent out as soon as they are finished.
After last weekend's hiking accident, people may have concerns about hiking safety and how to avoid something similar happening to them. KOAM's Bronte Sorotsky spoke with an expert with the Missouri Department of Conservation, has more on safety tips for hikers.
Following a tragic hiking accident in Arkansas on Saturday, the Missouri Department of Conservation has some tips to avoid being in a similar situation.
There are certified guides, trail guides, hiking guides out there. If you're looking to find one, the best thing to do is probably go to social media and maybe even do a Google search on who is out there, and then maybe follow it up with social media, trying to get people's opinion, because some guide services are going to be better than others.
Tim Smith with the Shoal Creek Conservation Education Center suggests checking with the Better Business Bureau to ensure the tour guide leading the hike is legit.
There are some people are probably running guide services that are not registered or not legal, so to speak. I know National Park Services, they have some credentials you have to meet to be a guide service on their property.
But even more important, make sure that the hike you're going on fits within your skill set.
If you're going to an area, do some research on that area. Figure out where that area is, figure out where you're going, what trail you're going on, what the challenges of that trail is going to be, and know what your limits are.
During an emergency, it's important to have a plan ahead of time and stay calm.
The best thing to do in case of emergency is stay calm. Try to stay as calm as you can. Depending on where you're at, you may or may not have cell phone service. So that's part of another reason you need to do some research on where you're going, what the trail is that you're going to be going on is like, and what you might encounter on it.
And if you're hiking alone or with a tour group, make sure to let people know where you're going ahead of time. In Joplin, Bronte Sorotsky, KOAM News.
Smith says it's important to always have an emergency plan in place when going on a hike or any outdoor activity.
'Twas just a matter of time. There we go. Yeah, I just needed about 5 more minutes before that shot turned the way I planned it would. Very, very pleasant outside right now. Anywhere from high 60s in the southern portion of southwest Missouri to the high 70s out in the western part of southeast Kansas. Warm one today. Gonna work up around 90 degrees. 90 is the record at Joplin Regional Airport dating back to 1963, 1980, and 2005.
All right, this morning we're discussing an uptick in gun violence. Parents should never have to bury their own child, and that's what one parent had to do. Susan Williams lost her son Ethan to gun violence. He flew from Indiana to Brooklyn in 2020, where he was shot and killed. Police never caught the killer and believed he was a mistaken target in a gang shooting. CDC believes the uptick in gun violence is due to the pandemic. This brings us to our something to talk about. Do you believe the pandemic is to blame for an uptick in gun deaths?
91% of our respondents right now say no, 'tis not the result of the pandemic. Each and every morning, KOAMnewsnow.com/vote, or connect to us via our Facebook page at KOAM News Now.
All right, let's look at our top news stories. Coming up this half hour in the KOAM Morning News, we'll have a bizarre story about a man who suffered a heart attack after burying his girlfriend. Plus, the Pope says LGBTQ are welcome in the Catholic Church. We'll have the latest. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back. Topping World Watch, Pope Francis says the Catholic Church does not reject LGBTQ people, even though some in the church might. He was responding to a priest who created a new website for Catholics in the queer community. The priest asked what he would say to an LGBTQ Catholic who has experienced rejection from the church. The Pope responded in a handwritten note published on Twitter. He wrote, "God is Father, and he does not disown any of his children, and the church is a mother who calls together all her children." He also suggested they read the book of Acts in the Bible to see the image of the living church. For the first time in nearly 60 years, Britain's Queen Elizabeth has not attended the state opening of Parliament. As Holly Williams reports, the 96-year-old monarch pulled out of a number of public events recently because of health issues.
The state opening of Parliament proceeded this morning with all the pomp and circumstance that define this country's institutions.
In these challenging times, Her Majesty's government will play a leading role.
But in the Queen's place was her son and heir to the throne, Prince Charles, aided by his son, Prince William. The imperial state crown was there, but only the reigning monarch is allowed to wear it. The Queen continues to experience episodic mobility problems, said the palace in a statement, adding she'd reluctantly decided not to attend.
The risk is that the Queen is walking in the chamber and suddenly feels she has to stop. And that's not, she wouldn't want that. It's not dignified for her or for anybody else.
Opening Parliament is the monarch's constitutional duty.
My government will continue with its
She reads a speech written by the government outlining its legislative plans.
My government will seek.
The Queen's been doing it since she ascended the throne 70 years ago. The last time she missed the event was in 1963, when she was pregnant.
I think I might just put a knife in it.
The Queen recently celebrated her 96th birthday and appears in fine form for a woman of her age. But lately she's been seen using a walking stick, pulling out of several events. And the last 2 years haven't been easy. She lost her husband, Prince Philip, and has seen her son, Prince Andrew, engulfed in scandal. But stepping aside for Prince Charles is apparently not on the cards.
The Queen made a commitment when she was young, and at her coronation, that her job was for life.
So she's not going anywhere?
The Queen will not be going anywhere while she's still mentally able to do her job, no.
All eyes are now on the Queen's Jubilee next month, a 4-day celebration and a national holiday to mark her 7 decades on the throne, which will include a military parade, street parties and even a pop concert at Buckingham Palace. The question is to what extent she'll be able to take part. Holly Williams, CBS News, London.
That's a look at some of your biggest headlines from around the world. We'll be right back with the news you need to know before you head out the door. Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Joplin police arrest a suspect in Monday's robbery at Great Southern Bank. Authorities arrested Vincent Gepson from Anderson, Missouri. He's charged with robbery by force or violence. And a Joplin woman pleads guilty to driving while intoxicated in a crash that killed 2 people in 2021. Authorities say Rita Glasgow stole and drove a car while intoxicated. She crashed into another vehicle at the intersection of 28th and Connecticut, killing Terry and Rhonda Koppel of Joplin. Glasgow pleaded guilty to DWI death of 2 or more, possession of a controlled substance, and possession of drug paraphernalia. She will be sentenced in July. Springfield, Missouri man is dead after a fall during a hike at Buffalo National River. According to the Newton County, Arkansas Sheriff, the victim, identified as Bradley Thomas, was in a group led by a man in Arkansas operating a guide service without a license or insurance. It's not the first incident the tour guide had been involved in recently. Missouri House passes a new congressional redistricting plan that could be put in place for this year's elections. The state Senate still needs to approve the plan before Friday's deadline to pass legislation. Proposed voting districts are expected to continue Republicans' current 6-2 advantage over Democrats in the state's U.S. House delegation. Missouri is one of the last states still struggling to enact a congressional redistricting plan based on the 2020 census. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
Oh, soak in that site right there. That is over 7th and Rangeline, facing off to the north-northeast. Is that not a thing of beauty? I knew those clouds were going to be beneficial in some form or fashion this morning. 73 in Joplin, 76 in Chanute, 68 in Monette and Cassville. We are well on our way into the 80s, high 80s. We even see some 90s today. Got a chance once again to try to tie a record. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this. Story coming out of South Carolina where police say a man died of a heart attack right after he killed and buried his girlfriend in their own backyard. Will Rowe talked to the deceased woman's twin sister. Says her family did not see this coming.
At 102 Tanglewood Drive in Edgefield County, a bizarre twist unfolded that many in the area are calling karma.
I'm shocked. I didn't see any of that coming.
An incident report from the Edgefield County Sheriff's Office detailed the death of 65-year-old Patricia Dent. Her twin sister Pamela says there were no signs of any of this happening.
Everybody who've ever met her liked her. She was just, she's full of energy. She's 65 and working.
Deputies responded to the house where Dent lived with her boyfriend, 60-year-old Joseph McKinnon. The sheriff says he strangled her to death in their home before burying her in a pit in the backyard.
Shocked. I was in shock.
McKinnon put the shovel to the side and was walking away when he had a heart attack and died on the spot. Deputies showed up after someone reported McKinnon laying in the yard unresponsive. Dent was supposed to be at Mount Vintage Golf Course where she worked, but never showed up.
She wanted to know if I knew where my sister was. I said, no, I have no idea. So then it just started to play out then.
The family says this is a gap that will never be filled again.
I would say a nightmare that, I want to wake up and it's a dream, but I know that it's not reality. This is life. And a big part of me is gone. And now I'm going to have to learn to live with that.
Sheriff's Office says it is not aware of any visits to the house before or any other prior incidents. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this. Going to be up in the high 80s later on today. Back-to-back days of, once again, abnormally warm May weather. Even though Friday is warm, we do have some rain on the horizon there working into the weekend, and we'll take a look at that when we return right after this.
Coming up, a Joplin woman enters a guilty plea for killing 2 people in 2021.
Marvelous looking Wednesday morning. We've got more possibly record high temps on the horizon. We'll have the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And if you plan on voting, Missouri senators want you to show photo identification.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 6 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment and why there's so many dominoes on this desk. But first, let's go to Michael Hazlett.
Wednesday morning cloud cover providing us with just gorgeous, gorgeous early morning hues across 4 state skies. That's a live look outside of Television City, and there we are at 7th and Rangeline. Took the camera, faced it toward the northeast. That is stunning right there. And just want to kind of capture that. And every time we get one of those cold, hazy winter mornings, harken back to that scene that's before our very eyes on this Wednesday, May the 11th. 73 in Joplin, 75 in Chanute. Let's roll 70 in Miami. So very, very pleasant, similar in nature to what we've had past couple of days. Heavier cloud cover out to the west, but all the rain will remain on the other side, west of I-35 right there. So we're going to be dry and we're going to be warm once again. I think really the biggest difference is just the amount of cloud cover that we have for this morning. Weather trend going to lift us up around 90 degrees. If we do get to 90 at Joplin Regional Airport, tie the record that dates back to 1963. Did it again in 1980, did it again in 2005. As far as, well, there's your afternoon planner, no big changes. I want to fast forward ahead here and get to Friday. Wednesday, rain stays off to the east. Thursday, going to be up into the 90s once again. Now, everything that you see developing out to the west, that's a front. Low pressure begins to move in for Friday. But really, on this model right here, pay attention to the darker green. Light green is going to have a hard time hitting the ground. So Friday afternoon and evening, that's when we begin to get a little bit more widespread. Takes us into Saturday, where we'll hold on to some rain for Saturday morning as well, and then kind of roll from Saturday night into Sunday. I don't want to call them cooler temperatures, but we do back off a little bit. We'll go mid-80s on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
All right, thanks, Michael. A Joplin woman pleads guilty to driving while intoxicated in a crash that killed 2 people in 2021. Authorities say Rita Glasgow stole and drove a car while intoxicated. She crashed into another vehicle at the intersection of 28th and Connecticut, killing Terry and Rhonda Koppel of Joplin. Glasgow pleaded guilty to DWI, death of 2 or more, possession of a controlled substance, and possession of drug paraphernalia. She will be sentenced in July. A new memorial in Carthage honors fallen police officers across the county. Jasper County Sheriff Randy Kaiser came up with the idea for a fallen officers memorial a year ago. On Tuesday, the idea was realized in a new wall tile memorial featuring photos of fallen officers across Jasper County. A memorial service was held at the courthouse to honor the fallen and showcase the new display.
It's a profession that men and women get into knowing what the risks are, and unfortunately some of those people have paid the ultimate price. And I think that we've seen that just very recently, and I think that needs to be remembered and that needs to be commemorated.
Sheriff Kaiser says he plans to make this an annual event. We'll have more on the memorial to fallen officers later in the show. Missouri senators pass a bill requiring voters to show photo identification at the polls. The primary bill would require voters to show government-issued photo IDs to cast ballots. Now, voters who do not bring valid IDs could cast provisional ballots. The bill would also allow voters to cast ballots up to 2 weeks prior to an election for any reason. Currently, voters need to cite an excuse for why they will not be able to vote in person on Election Day. Missouri House passes a congressional redistricting plan that could see implementation for this year's elections. The state Senate still needs to approve the plan before Friday's deadline to pass legislation. The proposed voting districts are expected to continue Republicans' current 6-2 advantage over Democrats in the state's U.S. House delegation. Missouri is one of the last states still struggling to enact a congressional redistricting plan based on the 2020 census. Missouri House lawmakers reject a proposed constitutional amendment which would guarantee parents' control of their children's public education. If enacted by voters, the proposal would also have put constitutional restrictions on how teachers discuss race and racism. Some Republicans argued the legislation should be enacted through state law, not the Constitution. One Democrat said parents already have the right to control their children's education by homeschooling. Well, the end of the school year is just around the corner, and so is summer school. The McDonald County School District is using a summer school program titled Summer Journey. The goal is to prepare students for their upcoming school year, and that includes giving supplies. Supplies will be delivered to schools in the district on Thursday.
For many of the classes that they're allowed to take for credit during the school year too. So you can take your art credit, your foreign language, music, drama, PE. We also have core credit classes that you might want to take if you're really into science. For example, you might want to take the forensic science or the microbiology class.
Summer school in McDonald County begins June 1st and runs through June 29th. You can see a full list of what's included in the new program on our website, KOAMnewsnow.com. On this date back in 1934, a massive storm sent millions of tons of topsoil flying from across the parched Great Plains region of the United States as far east as New York, Boston, and Atlanta. By the early 20th century, farmers had plowed under much of the grass to create fields. Wheat farms began to push their fields to the limits, plowing under more and more grassland with the newly invented tractor. That year, severe drought spread across the region. As crops died, wind began to carry dust from overplowed and overgrazed lands. The number of dust storms reported jumped from 14 in 1932 to 28 in 1933. The following year, the storms decreased in frequency but increased in intensity, culminating in the most severe storm yet in May of 1934. In 1935, President FDR's administration began to enforce federal regulation of farming methods. This worked to a point, reducing dust storms by up to 65%, but only the end of the drought in the fall of 1939 would truly bring relief.
Change farming methods. Just last week, as a matter of fact, one of our This Day in Histories was The Grapes of Wrath, John Steinbeck's novel.
Well, and my family has a rich history in the farming in in Anderson County, and my I've talked to you about this several times. My grandfather remembers his father. He was one of 2 men in the county that knew how to, they called it witching for water, dowsing, so they could find water sources, find wells, and
And-
help
and
keep the county alive.
A
Anyway.
tribute to those who stuck around and I don't want to say toughed it out, because certainly I can't fathom what that was like, but thousands upon thousands of people said we can't do this.
Right.
We got to go. All right, 7-day forecast for today. Be fortunate, folks. Be fortunate. Every time you just turn on that tap water in the kitchen, think about that story Tanya just told you right there. 7-day forecast getting us close to 90 degrees. Beautiful morning. God, I love it when we get some cloud cover like that. Locks in those colors right there. Back-to-back days, close to 90 degrees. Got a little rain going to formulate Friday. Kind of more widespread for the afternoon and evening hours and carry us into the weekend.
That's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, new details in the apprehension of an Alabama inmate.
Fugitive Casey White is now back behind bars in Alabama after a nationwide manhunt. I'm Bradley Blackburn with new images of his capture and growing evidence Officer Vicky White masterminded the escape.
Plus, secrets under the surface of Lake Mead begin to appear as drought takes its arid toll. And we all know stress can have a negative impact on our health, but new research shows it can also have a negative impact on fertility. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back. Topping Nation Watch this morning, a Vermont man is facing murder charges along with insurance fraud charges in the 2016 death of his mother. Federal prosecutors say 28-year-old Nathan Carmen killed his mother, Linda Carmen, while on a fishing trip and then sunk his 31-foot boat. At the time, he was found floating off the coast of Martha's Vineyard. He told the Coast Guard the boat took on water and he lost sight of his mother when he swam to a life raft. Nathan Carmen is also accused of killing his grandfather in 2013 in an effort to inherit his $7 million fortune, which was passed to Linda before she died. Federal authorities say if convicted of his mother's murder, Carmen faces life in prison. Fraud charges each carry a potential penalty of up to 30 years. New images show the final moments when police closed in on that fugitive couple from Alabama. Jail escapee Casey White is now in custody, and Vicky White, the former corrections officer who allegedly helped him, is dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Bradley Blackburn has the details.
Casey, was it worth it? Casey White, the 6-foot 9-inch tall fugitive, is now back behind bars in Alabama. He was arraigned at the Lauderdale County Courthouse Tuesday night, just hours after police ended an 11-day manhunt in Evansville, Indiana. This dashcam footage shows the moments after White was pulled from his overturned getaway car. Inside, former corrections officer Vicky White, who had just shot herself in the head. An autopsy confirmed her death as a suicide.
She still got it in her hand.
Got the gun in her hand?
Yes.
We have photos of the weapons that were located in the vehicle.
Police recovered an AR-15, handguns, wigs, and thousands of dollars in cash. Officials say if they hadn't rammed the getaway car to end the pursuit, things could have gone differently.
Had they not done that, the fugitive was going to engage in a shootout with law enforcement.
Casey White referred to Vicky White as his wife. There's no evidence they got married or were related. Leading up to the escape, police say Vicky White sold her house and escorted Casey White from jail in her patrol car under the guise she was taking him to a mental health evaluation. Her law enforcement colleagues are still trying to understand why.
Vicky was a friend of all of us. I'm very disappointed in what she did. I have no explanation for why she did it.
Having put in for retirement, that day of the escape was also the day Vicky White had said previously would be her final one on the job. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News.
Casey White was already serving a 75-year prison sentence and faces the death penalty in a murder trial. The U.S. House passed a bill Tuesday allowing staffers on Capitol Hill to unionize. It's a major development for labor activists who have pushed for the option for years. It comes after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi wrote in a letter to her colleagues last week that the vote would happen, saying, quote, "Congressional staffers deserve the same fundamental rights and protections as workers all across the country, including the right to bargain collectively." The vote does not apply to staffers on the Senate side, however, as the bill is not expected to pass in the Senate. Mike Tyson will not face criminal charges over an incident on a plane last month. Video appeared to show him hitting another passenger. San Mateo County, California DA says he decided not to file misdemeanor battery charges against Tyson based on the circumstances surrounding the confrontation. Those circumstances include the conduct of the alleged victim leading up to the incident. The DA also said both men involved asked that charges not be filed. Video appeared to show Tyson bending over his seat and repeatedly hitting a passenger in the row behind him. Tyson representative said at the time the other passenger began harassing Tyson and threw a water bottle at him. No water bottle was visible in the video, but it didn't show the entire incident. That's a look at today's top national stories. We'll be right back.
Submerged secrets are now coming to the surface as water levels in Nevada's Lake Mead have plunged to historic lows amid what's being called a mega drought. And with that, now human remains are washing ashore. Nick Watt talked to investigators as they tried to determine when and how the bodies got there.
Lake Mead is shrinking, an omen of an uncertain future as climate change bites and, as that water level lowers, grisly discoveries from a dark past. Just a short drive from Sin City out here in the wilderness, this past Saturday, May 7th, human skeletal remains spotted at a popular recreation spot.
You second guess bringing your kids out here anymore.
I think I want to leave.
Less than a week earlier, Sunday, May 1st, another human body in a rusty barrel in the mud.
That is definitely and clearly a homicide investigation.
Because in that decomposing body, they found a gunshot wound.
We believe the incident occurred in the late 1970s to early 80s, and we're basing that upon footwear and clothing that the victim was found wearing. And we know that that footwear and clothing was sold at Kmart in the mid to late 1970s.
Back in those days, Las Vegas was a gangster's paradise that inspired a cinematic staple. Remember Casino?
Meeting in the middle of the desert always made me nervous. It's a scary place.
Dead bodies in trunks, shallow graves, cement boots.
We're assuming mafia, we're assuming everything because it's Vegas.
These two retired Vegas cops, now podcast hosts, are offering $5,000 to any diver who finds another body.
I feel, it'd just be interesting to kind of close out some cases or identify some people that are missing persons.
So the body in the barrel that was found right here. When it was dumped decades ago, we'd have been under a lot of water. This would have been somewhere near the middle of Lake Mead. So a safe, submerged secret. Not anymore. This is now the shoreline.
And so detectives from Vegas are now faced with a decades-old murder, a vast crime scene, and right now, very little to go on beyond those 70s shoes.
In any homicide investigation, the first part of the investigation is obviously we have to identify the victim. And that's what we're trying to do at this point.
Police do not suspect foul play with the skeletal remains that were discovered a couple days ago. They say accidents do happen at Lake Mead, especially drownings, but more bodies could be found as the water level continues to recede. And speaking of that, they actually have reservoirs that have gotten so low right now that they're exposing what are called intake valves. That's how low those have gotten, and they're being called the holes to hell because of the amount of suction that they create now that they're so close to the surface. And a number of reservoirs historically not roping those places off to boaters and swimmers. High temperatures for May are now at 72 degrees. So after what was could be deemed a cool start to our 5th month, we're right on par with where we normally anticipate it being. 73 degrees, it's Joplin Regional Airport right now. That humidity, 87%. I don't want to call it sticky, but you'll notice the humidity when you walk outside with the wind just 5 to 10 miles per hour. And there we are with a gorgeous look over Television City. Love that grass getting all green. Let's go back to 7th and Rangeline there and just enjoy a shot of the picture, because that's a cloud cover that we had earlier this morning has really been a beautiful sight. Not that our previous sunrises this week weren't gorgeous, but the cloud cover trapped in that warmth from yesterday. We're already sitting mid-70s in southeast Kansas, low 70s, even some high 60s still out there in Monette and in Cassville. No worries about precipitation with that cloud cover as it hangs out to the west and really won't be able to make it over I-35. 7-day forecasts, back-to-back days around 90 degrees. Friday is going to bring us a little thunderstorm activity for the afternoon and evening hours. Take us into Saturday, where we'll go mid-80s over the weekend. We'll be back with Health Watch next.
Topping Health Watch this morning, about 1 in every 50 kids will develop obstructive sleep apnea, a condition that causes brief periods of stopped breathing during sleep. And today we look at what causes this sleep issue in kids.
Sleep is essential for helping kids recharge, but children with sleep apnea don't get the rest they need. The disorder can cause pauses in breathing that affect sleep quality and lead to daytime sleepiness, behavior issues, and more.
If you look at the bottom third of a classroom in performance, and you look at over half those kids will have undiagnosed obstructive sleep apnea.
Dr. Floyd Livingston says many kids with sleep apnea will be misdiagnosed as being hyperactive. According to the American Sleep Apnea Association, as many as 25% of kids diagnosed with ADHD may actually have sleep apnea. And while most cases of sleep apnea in adults are caused by obesity, enlarged tonsils and adenoids are usually to blame in children. The condition most often affects kids between ages 2 and 8.
That's when kids are growing the fastest, so they're increasing in height, but their width is not increasing as quickly, so their airway resistance goes up during that time.
Some common symptoms to watch out for include snoring, gasping for breath, night sweats, bedwetting, sleepwalking, and choking during sleep. The good news is surgery to remove enlarged tonsils and adenoids can help kids find relief. Other treatments include anti-inflammatory or antihistamine medicines, orthodontic devices, or a CPAP machine. The important thing is to get treated so your child can rest easy.
Well, doctors diagnose sleep apnea in kids by performing an overnight sleep study in a lab. During this test, special machine measures specific body functions while the child sleeps. It's painless and non-invasive. New research out of St. Louis finds medication to treat opioid abuse is underutilized. In a study of 180,000 patients treated for opioid disorder, more than 50% of them were not given the potentially life-saving drug called buprenorphine. The authors say because the drug is also an opioid, some doctors may be hesitant to prescribe it. Stress may be linked to fertility issues in women. In tests on rats, researchers found diminished egg reserve and reduced fertility for female rats exposed to screams. They found that noise decreased estrogen and hormone levels that play an important role in reproductive development. Don't scream around mom. And your sex and how you brew your coffee may play a role in how it impacts your cholesterol. A new study published in the journal Open Heart finds 3 to 5 cups of espresso a day was linked to high cholesterol, especially among men. When it comes to filtered coffee, women who drank 6 or more cups a day were shown to have higher cholesterol levels, but not men. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News.
Day planner for today, beginning our jaunt up into the 80s and eventually close to 90 degrees this afternoon. Sunny and warm, all the cloud cover that we have right now will slowly but surely break up for the afternoon hours. No rain involved with it, so it's going to be dry once again. We are going to get some rain before the end of the week, though. Let's fast forward. You know, today is going to be close to 90. Tomorrow, through the afternoon hours, there we are creeping up around 90 again, even warmer and hotter, if you will, out to the west. And you see that rain begin to develop there Thursday afternoon. But this is actually going to break up on us Thursday evening. So we'll get through Thursday all right as well. Warm Thursday evening and adding to the instability for Friday morning all to the afternoon. You see the cooler temperatures then develop out to the central and eastern portion of the 4 states as that rain begins to move in early on Friday. But it really doesn't become more widespread until after we get into Friday afternoon and evening. And as we roll through that, we're going to have a more manageable mid-80s if you're not a fan of this warmer, hot weather right now. Mid-80s on Saturday and Sunday.
Coming up, a Joplin woman enters a guilty plea for killing 2 people in 2021.
Gorgeous looking Wednesday start and temperatures headed toward the 90s. We'll have the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And if you plan on voting, Missouri senators want you to show photo identification.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 6:32. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment, but first, Let's go to Michael Hayslip.
Officially, sunrise was at 6:13. Now we've got just a couple minutes more before the glow cloud emerges over the tree line at 7th and Rangeline in what is a gorgeous Wednesday morning. 73 degrees right now. Humidity, a little bit sticky out there. It's all the way up to 87%. We've got Neosho and Anderson that have now joined the 70-degree club, 75 in Chanute, 70 in Miami as well. Still got 68 and 67 in Monette and Cassville, respectively. There's that cloud cover that just brought us absolutely gorgeous colors this morning. All the rain hanging out to our west, already breaking up along the Kansas-Oklahoma state line. So really no travel concerns other than making sure your air conditioner works if you're going to be on the road for extended periods of time, because we're going to be up around 90 degrees. 90 the record at Joplin Regional Airport for today. That dates back to 1963, and it was also set in 2005 and 1980. That was the one I was missing there, 1980. All right, future track for Thursday, back into the 90s. For tomorrow, rain stays at bay out to the west. Friday, things begin to change. We see the cooler temperatures on front in the eastern portion of that front. Rain begins early Friday morning, but you got to remember with this model right here, we're trying to pick out the darker colors of green there for it to actually get widespread, and that doesn't happen until the afternoon hours. Still going to be a tad bit warm on Friday, but then after the front rolls through Friday afternoon and evening, it will take us back down to some mid-80s on Saturday and Sunday. Pick up some additional rainfall, not widespread. Saturday night into Sunday morning, not really looking too bad, and I guess coming off of last week. Light showers, even thunderstorm activity doesn't look too bad compared to 7 to 10 inches of rain in 24 hours.
Mm-hmm. We should probably explain why there's all these colorful blocks.
No, it's better with no context.
Okay.
Most things are better with no context in life. Like if I were to yell, "Julie, whose dog is this?"
I would say, "Jimmy, it's not ours. But let's take a picture and put it on Facebook."
There you
go. Basically,
oh, you are going to give it
yeah,
context.
we are. I'm building something that we're going to tear down at the end of the show, and it's all in honor of the season finale of Domino Masters, which airs tonight on Fox 14. And you have a chance to win. There's so many more pieces in the box I haven't even pulled up. It's 1,200 pieces total.
Julie, whose dog is this, comes from a story that we ran yesterday from a gentleman in Tennessee who woke up in his own bed to realize that he was snuggling a dog, just not his own dog. Just a random dog that had made his way into his house. And he yelled at his wife, "Julie, whose dog is this?"
Not ours.
There you go.
It had a happy ending, though. That's for sure.
Better said without context, folks. It's a lot like Alice's Restaurant by Arlo Guthrie. If you just like to walk in to the grocery store today and just start yelling, "Julie, whose dog is this?" I am all about that. I will join you.
All right, let's move along. In our news segment today, a Joplin woman pleads guilty to driving while intoxicated in a crash that killed 2 people in 2021. Authorities say Rita Glasgow stole and drove a car while intoxicated. She crashed into another vehicle at the intersection of 28th and Connecticut, killing Terry and Rhonda Koppel of Joplin. Glasgow pleaded guilty to DWI, death of 2 or more, possession of a controlled substance, and possession of drug paraphernalia. She will be sentenced in July. Missouri senators pass a bill requiring voters to show photo identification at the polls. The primary bill would require voters to show government-issued photo ID to cast ballots. Voters who do not bring valid IDs could cast provisional ballots. The bill would also allow voters to cast ballots up to 2 weeks prior to an election for any reason. Currently, voters need to cite an excuse for why they won't be able to vote in person on Election Day. Well, Jasper County has a new memorial to honor fallen police officers. The memorial was presented at a special ceremony on Tuesday. KOAM's Chris Warner was there and has more.
This is the new memorial honoring fallen officers throughout Jasper County, something Sheriff Randy Kaiser says was a long time coming.
It occurred to me last year that we don't have something that recognizes all of the officers that have fallen in Jasper County, like one central location. And so we kind of came up with the idea of doing a wall here at the courthouse.
Kaiser says it's important to honor those who have laid down their lives for their fellow citizens.
It's a profession that men and women get into knowing what the risks are. And unfortunately, some of those people have paid the ultimate price. And I think that we've seen that just very recently, and I think that needs to be remembered and that needs to be commemorated.
Law enforcement agencies across the county were in attendance. They read the names of the fallen officers for their agencies.
Patrolman William Smith, Charles Corbin, Eli Gray, Sergeant Scott Warner.
That included the Joplin Police Department, which is still recovering from the tragedy in March.
You know, it's still kind of tough because we just lost, 2 officers and had one seriously injured a few months back. So it's still very fresh on everyone's mind. So even though it's tough, I think it's an outstanding way to honor them.
Missouri's director of the Department of Public Safety was on hand as well for the ceremony.
Well, I think it's important for all communities to remember those that have served and paid the ultimate sacrifice within their community, and it states how important that memory is to those that may come behind them, and also for future generations for public servants.
In Carthage, Chris Warner, KOAM News.
Sheriff Kaiser says he plans to make this an annual event. Well, on this date back in 1997, chess grandmaster Garry Kasparov resigns after 19 moves in a game against Deep Blue, a chess-playing computer developed by scientists at IBM. Kasparov, a chess prodigy from Azerbaijan, was a skillful chess player from childhood. At the age of 22, Kasparov beat Anatoly Karpov to become the youngest world champion in history. Kasparov, considered the greatest chess player in history, carried a streak of 12 world chess titles in a row into his match against Deep Blue. Now, Deep Blue, on the other hand, was a supercomputer designed to calculate 100 to 200 billion chess positions during the 3 minutes allotted to a player per move in standard chess. Sounds fair. Last game of the 1997 Kasparov versus Deep Blue match lasted only an hour, with Kasparov conceding defeat for the first time in his career.
That's big international news when that happened. I remember that. And the look on Garry Kasparov's face. Now this is, you're talking, today is the date where Deep Blue beat Kasparov. Is that right? Trevor's nodding.
Let me look back.
Because I'm going to guess because of the look on Garry Kasparov's face. Let's remember, and I think it's amazing what artificial intelligence has been able to do. And let's remember that was the late 90s as well. Kasparov had already beat Deep Blue and his predecessor.
So he'd already beat Deep Blue before. This was the day that he lost. Why did he keep playing against him if he already beat him once? Oh, true. Because bigger's always better.
Pay that money.
Oh, wait, we're not getting paid to do this. Oh, yeah, we are. Okay.
Garry Kasparov doesn't show up and do things for free.
True that.
True that.
Do you think he got paid to lose?
No, he took it very personally.
Okay.
I remember that. And there's a great book about it too. It's something called Beating the Mind. I can't remember off the top of my head. No, Garry Kasparov took it extremely personally. And there were some intricacies thrown in there. Like IBM wouldn't give him access to Deep Blue's previous games, which is if you're a chess grandmaster, that's what you study going in to play somebody.
Oh, that's not fair.
Yeah, but just to point out, Kasparov had beat not that computer. He beat 2 of Deep Blue's predecessors twice.
Wow.
Twice. All right, our weather trend for today, 90s, sunny skies, challenging records for today and tomorrow. Remember, Friday is when we begin a little weekend rain.
Look at our top news stories coming up this half hour in the KOAM Morning News. Ever wanted to own an X-Wing fighter? Now you can for the right price, as some of Hollywood's most iconic items hit the auction block. Plus, gun violence deaths have surged in 2022. Many experts believe the pandemic played a role. We want to know if you think so. That's this morning's topic of conversation. We'll be right back. The Senate confirms the first black woman to serve on the Federal Reserve's Board of Governors. Lisa Cook has a doctorate in economics from the University of California, Berkeley, and was on the White House Council of Economic Advisors during the Obama administration. Vice President Kamala Harris cast the breaking vote after all 50 Republicans voted against her, arguing she doesn't have sufficient experience with interest rate policy. Apple is discontinuing production of the iPod after 20 years. Fans of the iconic music player can still buy an iPod Touch, while supplies last. When it debuted in October of 2001, Apple's first MP3 player held 1,000 songs and had a 10-hour battery life. Movie fans have the chance to bid on some of Hollywood's most iconic props this summer, including Wilson, the beloved volleyball that kept Tom Hanks company on a deserted island in Castaway. Who hasn't made their own Wilson? The top item is an X-Wing starfighter from the original Star Wars movie, expected to go for up to $1 million. Also available, Thor's hammer and Dan Aykroyd's Ghostbusters costume. Cool. That's it for Consumer Watch. Let's go over to Michael for our Something to Talk About.
Thank you, Tanya. This morning on the KOAM News Now Insta poll and our Facebook page, our Something to Talk About, the uptick in gun violence. That's what one parent had to do, is bury her son because of gun violence. Susan Williams is the mom, her son Ethan. Ethan flew from Indiana to Brooklyn in 2020. That's where he was shot and killed. Police never caught the killer. Believe that Ethan was mistaken target in a gang shooting. The CDC believes that the uptick in gun violence is due to the pandemic. This brings us to our Something to Talk About, asking you, is the pandemic to blame for an increase in gun deaths? Right now, 94% of you, an overwhelming 94%, say no, it is not the fault of the pandemic. Each and every morning, KOAMNewsNow.com/vote right there, or you can also connect to us at the KOAM News Now Facebook page. We'll be back and celebrate birthdays and anniversaries, but first, off to the Big Apple. Let's check in with Miss Gail.
Hello to you, I'm Gail King. Coming right up on CBS Mornings, Anthony talks with a Grammy-nominated band, Glass Animals. Hear about the obstacles a British band overcame to gain worldwide success. They're huge. That's coming right up on CBS Mornings.
We take this time to honor today's four-state hero, Corporal Donald Ferris. The native of Dunwich, Missouri, served in Korea from 1952 to 1953 as part of the 3rd Division 9th Field Artillery. This highly decorated veteran earned 2 Bronze Stars, among other awards. Corporal Donald Ferris, we thank you, today's four-state hero.
The birthday list begins with Oliver Cavanis. Speaking of hats, you know me and my hats. I love that hat right there. Big Oliver, number 2. That's a really cool picture, too. He is in Neosho, and Oliver, I want you to know this comes with love from Aunt Angie.
Oliver looks like he's on the move. I like it. All right, and up next we have Colby Kitchler, turning 5 years old this year. Little ballerina dancer there. Colby is in Walnut, Kansas.
I have known this one for a long time, and I now have to refer to her as a young woman. Annabelle Margie, celebrating her 18th birthday. Annabelle, congratulations. It's been such a pleasure to watch you grow up in a marvelous family that you have. And I want you to know, Annabelle, that this comes with love from Mom, Dad, Chris, and Anthony. And Annabelle, even though it's your day, your birthday, you tell your mom and your dad, Hayslip said, what's up?
And then we have Joe Stringer, turning double nickels today, 55 for Joe in Parsons. Happy birthday from your wife, Laura, and the family.
See what Joe did there? Yeah.
Yep, he ain't gonna forget.
That's
It's his
how you
own
don't
birthday.
forget right there. Joe and Laura's celebrating a decade tomorrow. So we got Joe's birthday, and then Sally's like, that's my reminder, anniversary's tomorrow. Congratulations to Joe and Laura. A day early. Dorothy Heiser, she is celebrating her 75th birthday. Miss Heiser, she is the wife of our four-state hero, John Heiser. And so Dorothy, a happy birthday to you in Pittsburgh.
All right, and we've got Beverly Murdoch in Columbus. Happy birthday. And as I understand, the bus is where the party is, because Lindsay Morris is also celebrating a birthday in Columbus.
Right there in the middle of your screen. Happy birthday, Lindsay. Why don't we keep it in the bus and give Lorna Stover her own... Oh, well, Miss Stover. Miss Stover, how are you doing? Lorna, a very happy birthday to you. She is in Columbus. That is where the party is at. It's in the bus. Happy birthday and happy anniversary to all on this May the 11th. So nice to see Annabelle's picture on there. So nice that we know that Joe Stringer won't forget that anniversary for tomorrow. Joe, don't forget. That's where you can send them into birthdays at KOAMTV.com. You can also go to our website, KOAMNewsNow.com. Now here's Tanya Bach with a very important birthday announcement.
That's right. You can be a part of the KOAM Birthday Club by going to our website and signing up. And once you do, you'll get special deals from local businesses. Go to KOAMNewsNow.com and sign up for the KOAM Birthday Club today.
Coming up when the KOAM Morning News transitions over to Fox 14, a tech company wants to make, Tanya, robots a bigger part of the hospitality industry. They're coming to take our jobs. We're going to have to see it to believe it and find out just exactly what these things can do before we have to call Linda Hamilton.
Can they multitask and read the news and weather and build dominoes at the same time?
I'm not worried. I'm going to call Linda Hamilton. I know what she can do to a robot. I've seen it happen. Wait, movies are real, right?
Take it down.
Temperatures right now, it's still holding on to some high 60s in southwest Missouri, 68 in Monette, 67 in Cassville, Joplin a comfortable 73, and second consecutive day that we've had the warmth out to the west where we've got mid-70s in the Neodesha and Chanute. That green that you see right there, not able to hit the ground, a little pop, far western county. Part of this system that was on the other side of I-35 that was a result of our cloud cover, but we're going to be dry for today. Give you kind of a regional overview if you have to be on the road. Up around 90 degrees, going to be a warm one. 90 is the record at Joplin Regional Airport for May the 11th. So we'll keep an eye on that. Every day we seemingly get close to setting a record. We haven't been able to pull it off this week as of yet. If we were to john out to Chanute out at Martin Johnson Airport, our record high out there would be 91. So we'll be close. And once again, those records date back to 1963. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this.
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Joplin police arrest a suspect in Monday's robbery at Great Southern Bank. Authorities arrested Vincent Gepson from Anderson, Missouri. He is charged with robbery by force or violence. A Joplin woman pleads guilty to driving while intoxicated in a crash that killed 2 people in 2021. Authorities say Rita Glasgow stole and drove a car while intoxicated. She crashed into another vehicle at the intersection of 28th and Connecticut, killing Terry and Rhonda Koppel of Joplin. Glasgow pleaded guilty to DWI death of 2 or more, possession of a controlled substance, and possession of drug paraphernalia. She will be sentenced in July. Springfield, Missouri man is dead after a fall during a hike at Buffalo National River. According to the Newton County, Arkansas Sheriff, the victim, identified as Bradley Thomas, was in a group led by a man in Arkansas operating a guide service without a license or insurance. This was not the first incident the tour guide had been involved in recently. Missouri House passes a new congressional redistricting plan that could be put in place for this year's elections. State Senate still needs to approve the plan before Friday's deadline to pass legislation. Proposed voting districts are expected to continue Republicans' current 6-2 advantage over Democrats in the state's U.S. House delegation. Missouri is one of the last states still struggling to enact a congressional redistricting plan based on the 2020 census. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
Sunny skies after we get rid of our morning cloud cover, and the morning clouds have actually been a little bit of a boon. Keep us from warming up too quickly. As far as future track, back into the high 80s, low 90s on Thursday. Then as we push into Friday, here comes that front that moves in from the west right there. We'll start with rain out on the western edge of southeast Kansas. Really doesn't become widespread though until we get into the later afternoon and evening hours. A little bit more mild temperatures over the weekend as we'll be in the mid 80s Friday through Sunday.
All right, well, coming up today at noon, we're making quick as a wink pasta in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
Morning news continues on KOAM. CBS Mornings coming up next. So the Senate debating a bill today that would codify Roe versus Wade into federal law. That's coming up next on CBS Mornings, why it's a vote Democrats want to hold, but realize they won't win.
Or you can switch on over with us on Fox 14, where your only local morning news continues. And this morning, Fox wraps up this season of Domino Masters.
Domino Masters.
That's right. We're going to give you a chance to win a set of dominoes.
Domino Masters.
Yeah, all you have to do is log on to our website, KOAMNewsNow.com/giveaway, register to win, and you get to, the winner will get to take home.
Clock's ticking.
This,
Be safe. We'll do this all again tomorrow morning.
and we're going to do it again. I'm not doing it at the end of this show.
Oh, join us on Fox. I thought you were doing it here.
No, I'm doing it on Fox.
That's called a deep tease, folks.
Yeah, if you want to watch me continue to, it's not done. I got an hour left to continue building this and then knock it down.
I did my part. Get us out of here.
We'll be right back.